Hello and welcome to another edition of Clifton's Clicks, your Cliff Notes to the Cosmos. And I am your host, Clifton Smith. And we shall start with our sponsor. Water. Delicious. So in this episode, I want to dive right into a core grounding of understanding how your operating software and those who profess to help you with upgrading your operating software function and operate. Operating software operate. This is really to ground us and to start to help develop frameworks for you to go out and observe the world in a different way, in a more discerning way. So as always, I greet you with love, respect, gratitude, motivation, appreciation. And perhaps I did not start last session with that, and so I would like to say it for last session. Let me do make up for last session. There's an incredible amount of thought currents that are floating at every given point. And there are ones that are from various vibrational frequencies that we can hold on to, which is the tuning mechanism in our brain through the pineal gland, and I also feel activated towards the sides of my skull. And at certain levels of that kind of attunement, we can start to pick up various frequencies and what people might call transmissions, and be able to channel and start to get into some weird or some really interesting esoteric thought currents. And of course, the idea is, why do we pick up on thought currents? What is the point of picking up on these thought currents? Are you trying to find your purpose in life? That tends to be a good one. Are you just in it for entertainment purposes? Are you bored? You're trying to make the world a better place, etc., etc. And there's various degrees of reasoning as to why you would do it, but you're doing it nonetheless, right? And even if you think about what you want for dinner tonight, you're still practicing the same practice that I myself am practicing in others. We are simply tuning into a frequency, giving it our attention and willpower, and letting us hold on to that thought current. We are the ones giving it energy and giving it life. You might think that sounds crazy, that me channeling or downloading something is the same practice as you thinking about what to get at the grocery store or what to eat for dinner, but the mechanisms are the same, not necessarily all the fine mechanics of it. There might be some additional bandwidth that certain skills, initiations, and practices I've done may allow me to get into that extra, interesting frequency. But it's the same thing. We all have a possibility to attain it. Some of us, it's just more naturally occurring than others, and it's more our path than others, right? And so we understand this, we upgrade our operating software as we start to make sense of our world more and more, or ourselves, or our reality more and more. And as our reality grows through our experience, our awareness of what is reality grows, as well as the geospatial and relationships that we have grows. And our operating software needs to be upgraded in order to handle all these different changes. Otherwise, we act in a siloed nature and in fear, or just in an incongruent, non-integrated way, which has been kind of the prevailing norm in some some areas of psychology, right? To compartmentalize yourself. And perhaps there might be there are some basic truths in that. However, it is heavily oversimplified and not understood at all, to the point where it actually does more damage than good. act that way. And when we upgrade our operating software, we can start to see that we are vibration. Everything is vibration, and we start to think about not just our day and our apartment, but the rest of the world, society, as vibration, and our workplace as vibration. And then we go into how Earth as a whole has a vibration. Different planets have a vibration. They are recorded. They make sounds. You can actually hear how Jupiter sounds, Saturn sounds. Um, we have satellites that pick it up, and you can hear it. And they just hold an incredible frequency that is the prevailing frequency of the planet, of that energy, and that integrated space that they were holding. And last time I talked a bit about how, in Merkaba and how it works, you have the energetic field, and then you also have the electromagnetic field, or the mass, the Newtonian physical body that operates. And of course, for us to hold mass, we have specific information that we hold in a specific space, and it's that information encoded in DNA that is what gives that space its behaviors, thoughts, and actions, and over time, what creates its personality. And through epigenetics as well, that impacts it. And that's kind of how a cat is a cat. And my cat is different than your cat, and how I'm different from a cat, and how maybe perhaps there's some similarities between how I am and a cat is. It's all that DNA, it's all that information that's encoded in our bodies that we're holding, containing. And planets have a specific energy that contain it. And just like that, there can be different expressions of different frequencies and vibrations that my body goes through, that I don't necessarily act on, right? And as well as I do act on. And there's different frequencies that I can hone in on and just allow that to be. I can come into a heart-centered space, and of course that has a lot of benefits. I can come from a very brain-oriented space that has a vibration, and I can act on it. Or I can act from a very sacral or instinctual reproductive space, right? And society can play on any and all of these vibrations to help them accomplish whatever that is that they want to accomplish, whether it be some sort of self-interestedness, some sort of specific action or behavior, or move towards education and a form of altruism. And so, yeah, I might have fire flare up in me, but I'm not going to act upon it, right? It doesn't mean that it doesn't exist. It just means that my overall body is not going to allow that expression, that vibrational expression that's coming through me, to affect my behavior. Whereas for some other people, they don't have that kind of control, so they just act upon it. And so it's just a development and a training of how you can conduct oneself. And that is impacted a lot by a lot of your trauma, your past wounds, your biochemical imbalances, your food you eat, etc. And so, too, Earth has a specific frequency. Some people call it the Schumann resonance. And of course, now there's it may or may not be that as the most natural course of action of the Earth, but that's currently where the frequency of Earth is. And so Earth holds an overall frequency. And it doesn't mean that your frequency can't exist in that frequency, or someone else's frequency can't exist. It just means that overall, yeah, it might have those expressions, kind of like you might have angry thoughts run through you, but it doesn't act upon them. Yeah. And so what's important for us to maintain our integrity on Earth, because we live on Earth, is to constantly check it with Earth's vibrational field and also electromagnetic fields. However, based on our current and historic actions, we have done certain things to affect the energetic vibrational nature of Earth, as well as the electromagnetic resonance of Earth. And so I say that to help us understand that our bodies have a vibration that has an energy. Earth has a vibration and an energy. Where you spend your day to day impacts you, whether you spend it at home and however high vibe or low vibe your house is, uh, how you spend it getting to work, at work, it all affects it. But ultimately, there is a encapsulated frequency that is Earth, Earth's frequency. And with this understanding, we can pause and enter into the main gist of today's, which is how do you shift your frequency and how do you do it in a way that is sustainable and empowering to you. And that comes from many people have lots of information, right? Lots of thought currents that they wish to share with you and send to you. You might think of a lot of things. Questions is which ones do you hold on to? And more importantly, which ones do you act upon? Just because you hear something doesn't mean you act upon it. And more often than not, the education system and simply talking to someone and sending them thought current isn't going to register within them. And so one of the biggest challenges or opportunities for self-help coaches, gurus, etc., is not to pull in all this cosmic wisdom or share some sort of thought current with you so that it goes in one ear and out the other. And if you look at completion rates, I think it's 5 to 10% of completion rates on online learning platforms. 19 out of 20 people don't finish the courses that they start online. It's very clear that information is not the issue, right? Nor is it really the thing that educators really should be focusing on. We don't need more information. Yes, sure, we can organize that information better. But really, the most important aspect to all of this is to deliver in a way and to support the community in a way that they actually take that information and act upon it, right? Because thoughts, words, actions, behaviors, personalities, destinies, right? So it's really how do you take those thought currents and start to turn them into actions, and then how do you turn those actions and make them into behaviors? And that is really the secret sauce of all these self-help and gurus that separate the perhaps enlightened but not successful with the successful regardless of how the thought currents they may be preaching are. It is how successful can they take their thoughts, how they can use their words and their being and their approach. That I'm recording. It looks like, all right, now I'm recording again. Great. So let me just put it that way, to an idea, or a non-successful salesperson to an idea, is how well they can turn those thoughts and what they say into actions that you create, and more importantly, behaviors that you start to live. And so when you look at it that way, then you can start to see why the more successful individuals focus on behavior change rather than simply more lecturing. And that's one of the biggest things missing from the education system, is it doesn't focus on our behaviors or on our actions. In fact, it puts us in a passive state. And we're now more and more advocating for taking action and taking small action for learning to really hold, but it has to be integrated and authentic action, and it has to be sustained over time. And so what is the greatest way to, what is the greatest leverage point of an individual's life that will allow you as a coach, teacher, guru, etc., to really start to build a following? Yes, of course, if you're a musician, a rock star, who all have messages themselves, simply just listening to music is enough, because you're essentially digitally transmitting, or you're energetically transmitting the energy you wish to send to them. But if you're in a more prescriptive position to sell some sort of energy, you've got to have them take action. and even more so, create behavior change. Um, and when you're able to have them take more action, you start to build more trust and credibility in their life, and you start to actually become an expert or be viewed as an expert in their life. And if you start to really shift not just their actions but their behaviors, then you've really mastered that step. Um, and so the easiest thing to focus on to establish yourself as an expert or a guru is not to go after their thoughts, because thoughts come in and out a dime a dozen. It's to go after their actions and behaviors. But for what? What areas are actually key things for you to focus on? And that is something that we all do: eat, sleep, and drink. If an individual can get you to change anything, they know that what's universal is eat, drinking, and sleeping. And of course, dressing and talking and writing emails, etc., seem to be a pretty common thread. But from a universal thread, if he or she can get you to change your behavior or even to take action towards your health, your eating, drinking, or sleeping, then that's a hook mechanism towards it's like a lead funnel, a sales page, a splash page to get you into viewing them as a true, authentic authority figure. And so when you look at the flash gurus of our time, going after how you eat or drink or sleep is a universal principle because we all need to do those things. And it's easy. So if they are able for you to take action on the most primal activity that you do, that is the best inroads and best hook. It's not having you do some super complicated thing, but it's just saying, hey, take the ideas that I am presenting to you, take one step forward, take an action. And then all of a sudden, for those people who have taken action, now you have proof that the words that you say are being listened to and acted upon. So then you move a step further and you have them take another action and then another action. And then you have them sustain those actions with behavior change. And you start to construct your information by having those who do the most, or by having the most tantalizing information that you are there to share, have it be withheld until there's certain actions that people's lifestyles are changed. They're not just their behavior, but their lifestyle. And so you can see that in so many ways, whether it be an individual or an organization that is wishing to exert some influence on your life, they will go after your lifestyle. And now they may go after your lifestyle for very valid reasons, and they may be presenting some very important piece of information for you. However, it's important to separate and disassociate the lifestyle changes they are espousing with the other messages that they are professing. And from that point, you can start to see how you can really start to shift and move a large mass of humans to take action. It's not just about information download and reading and consuming. It's about actually taking action on that information. And it's done through food and water. And when you make those changes, you are essentially supporting and giving a signal energetically to that person who told you to do that they are a authority figure for whatever reason and mechanism by which they were able to convince you to take an action. And of course, I'm talking about it from an individual perspective, but also from a collective perspective, our society and perhaps even the most well-intending, or probably not, organizations, including like the FDA and the food pyramids, tell you to eat a certain type of food a certain number of times. And we know that the food you consume affects your vibe and how often you eat and how frequent you eat. And you then are able to start to unravel what are the actual hidden agendas, if they're not presented up front, of why one professes to eat or drink in a certain way. And if it's rooted in science and logic, then that's great. It's from a very science and logic-based perspective. However, it's not just the food that you are consuming that needs to be considered. And by the way, Ayurveda and specific more ancient, like Chinese medicine, etc., ways of breaking down food beyond simple proteins, carbs, and fats, and organic and non-organic, and GMO, non-GMO mechanisms will dictate and determine. Those teachings will show you what it is they're advocating for. And that has a specific desired intent. So for example, if you are advocating to eat a certain way because science proves it, or you use all science to prove your point, then you are moving people towards using science and established science to determine their eating. The challenge is that science is proving that we are all individual and unique, and it's very hard to make these broad generalizations, and there's long-term consequences towards consuming a specific diet for an extended period of time, and so they are essentially becoming science experiments. Crazy. Another thing is if you're eating foods that are making you more sedated, what they are doing is sucking out the ability for you to be creatively energized to create something different, and it's there to make you sedated and stay stationary. Same thing, if they're there to make you super hyped up, energized, and aggravated, then that's what it is. And you look at the different types of food from Ayurveda, and it's very clear there which ones are there to keep you in a certain calm state, sedated state, agitated state. And one step further is you trace it back to the food source. Not just what you're supposed to eat and how that affects you, but how that affects large-scale economies of food production. And what does that actually mean? If you're consuming things that are high in fat, from a natural perspective, you're consuming things that require a ton more water than if you were to eat something that was high in carbohydrates. And if you are eating something with a high advocacy for supplementation, you are specifically advocating supplementation. And if your lifestyle and the food that you are eating because of what it's advocating creates those chemical imbalances within you, then it is purporting for you to take supplements to counterbalance that. It is essentially creating a market out of nothing, out of thin air, for supplementation. It's intense. And so, yes, there's all these interesting aspects that you can choose to use to validate, rationalize, and profess for a certain dietary behavior. But number one is that it's going to affect how you think and act and behave because it's from an energetic space. Number two, it's also the reasoning and rationale behind why it is that they chose for you to consume that food that's important, because that shows you the why behind the why. And then to be able to trace it back to supply chain, how that impacts how the food companies and production companies will work, as well as the future, how you acting in a specific way from the food that you consume what kind of world that will create, what kind of vibe you will resonate with, and what future you will create collectively. And so the biggest point of vibrational awareness, which I'm very excited to do either a guest appearance or a new thing with, is with Victoria, is when we are talking about vibrational awareness, which is really something that is an incredible combination of, of Victoria and my journey together. Mine has been a bit more, yeah. I mean, we'll see how it goes, but it's been all about vibrational awareness. And so, where we're advocating is from a vibrationally aware state, which requires a specific vibrational education and exposure to and an ability to feel these vibrations. And then, more importantly, what we're looking at is behavior change from a vibrational state and identifying what things in our life, in our modern society, in its various levels and stratas in the matrix, what aspects give us the lowest vibe point that we can address to create those sizable returns towards elevating the vibe of you and of society. And we're excited to share with you some of those key points in your life, the decisions that you make, the behaviors that you do that spiral you downwards in a lower vibratory state, as opposed to a spiral you upwards or help you maintain your vibe so that way you can make better choices going forward. And that is where I'm going to leave you. So much respect, gratitude, love, appreciation. Wanted to get here because I'm excited to share, expose this, talk about this, the behaviors and the lifestyle and the foods that you eat, how it actually impacts the collective consciousness, as well as identifying those areas in your life in which there are low vibratory decisions that you make that create a spiraling downward effect, and how we can actively address that and spiral it up, and how we can create a movement in society to do that. I'm so excited to get there and talk with you about this with Victoria and see where that goes. So excited. She's been so incredible in this journey, and this is like an area that she's so good at, and I love and respect her so much for it. And I'm excited to see where we go with it, and leave it at that. So with that, thank you so much, and I'll see you next time. Bye.